Díomh cáirde go léir agus fáilte ar ais go an-mhór padcréile. Seo é an episód uimhir a seacht agus sa episód seo tá muid ag labhairt faoi an Uachtarán Rás. Tá scetamíní orm a bheith labhairt faoi an topéid seo. Mar is é an tábhachtach don tíre agus ar son na muintir na hÉireann. Buin soltas a cáirde. Hello everyone and welcome back to the Mhór podcast. This is episode number 7. In today's one we will be discussing the presidential election. So tá sé an padcréile ar mo féin inniu. This is a podcast on my own today. It feels a little bit awkward, I'll be honest, not having a guest, and it's been really shit so far, the podcast, because when I've had guests on and they've been not in person, other than the Brendan one obviously, they're like, you know, it's been just showing my face. We are working on software in the future to where if there's going to be a guest on, we'll use, you'll be able to see their faces. It won't just be me. But seeing as this is a solo one today, it's unfortunately you're going to have to look at my noggin for the whole thing. So yeah, not ideal at all. It feels a bit awkward being on my own, but I really want to try and get a podcast out every Tuesday, if possible, for as long as possible. Hopefully forever. Who knows? As long as I decide to keep doing this crack. So yeah, it's the presidential election today. Now, this could age really poorly. This could, you know, it could take a few weeks, a few months, and some candidate has pulled out of the race, or some candidate has decided to put their name in the hat, and all of a sudden I look very, very silly. That's 100% true. But equally, you know, I think it is a decent time to, you know, we're into the end of July now. The election is in November. There has been a few candidates who've confirmed they want to run. So why not have a chat about it, give ye the viewers hopefully some information, and you can kind of come up with your own opinion from there. So yeah, without too much waffle, we'll just get straight into it. So I'll just read out at first the confirmed runners, people who have pretty much either, like, the criteria I've based on is they've either announced it themselves, their party maybe has announced it, or there has been strong rumours they're seeking nominational candidates, seeking Oireachtas nominations. That's kind of the basis I've gone. And I've also a list of, you know, rumoured runners, which isn't a very long list. I could have probably made it longer if I wanted to, but yeah. So the confirmed people who've either expressed an interest in running, have confirmed it, or, you know, otherwise, as I mentioned, we've got Connolly, who's an independent, Conor McGregor, who's an independent, Mhór McGuiness, who is in the Fine Gael party, Delehanty, who is an independent, and Connolly, who used to be a part of a party but is now an independent. He used to be in the Libertas Party, European Parliament organisation. So yeah, I think I went alphabetical order at first, and then I forgot a few people, so it wasn't completely alphabetical order in the end. But anyway, the first candidate from an alphabetical perspective is Connolly. So Connolly, as I mentioned, she's an independent, and she should get onto the ballot pretty easily. So, a serving TD for Galway West since 2016, that's a total of 9 years. She was also a councillor on Galway City or County Council for 17 years before. She's ideologically to the left. Many have described her as a socialist. Formerly a member of the Labour Party, but left after a falling out, something to do with the Michael D. Higgins campaign. Look, she's not here to defend herself. I'm not going to get into the ins and outs of that. She's an advocate for the Irish language, which I obviously admire a lot. She's a huge proponent for Palestine, which is great as well. referring to Israel as a genocidal state. And she's also accused the government of not doing enough for the Palestinians. She believes the housing crisis and homelessness is a result of government policy. She's also a huge proponent of Irish neutrality. And finally, from her ideological perspective, she campaigned to repeal the Eighth Amendment in 2018. She is pro-choice, pro-abortion, some might say. An opinion that I wouldn't agree with myself. But she's entitled to it. And all left parties, aside from Sinn Féin and Labour so far, have rallied behind Connolly. So that includes, I think, the Green Party, I want to say, and certainly Social Democrats and People for Profit. So it's highly likely that she'll get 20 Oireachtas members to get her onto the ballot. And even if she doesn't, these three parties have quite a presence throughout the county councils. So she could get 31 of them, I want to say. Very bad if I get that wrong, but I think it is right. She'll get onto the ballot. So Catherine Connolly. My opinion, which I'm trying to make this more of an informational video, so take more heedance into that, but I might as well just sprinkle my own opinions in there a little bit. She seems like an incredibly nice person, nice woman. I like a lot of her stances on the Irish language and neutrality and Palestine. I suppose, very, very left wing on some social issues. That I would maybe have a tough time really rallying behind her and getting behind her campaign on that level, personally myself. But if candidates who I want don't make it onto the ballot, I wouldn't have a issue voting for her. I think she's very similar to Michael D. Higgins, who we all like as a man. He just represents Ireland well and the world stage and stuff. So more of that, while I don't love Michael D. Higgins in the same way that some people do. I mean, I really love him in many ways, but I don't some people, it's almost like a cult of personality. I wouldn't go that far, but my point is, if certain people who I want to get on the ballot don't get on the ballot, I'll probably be voting for her, over others. But look, my opinions aren't that important here. The point of this kind of podcast video is to give you information and for you to come to your own interpretations. So pay no heedance to my opinions there. That's all they are. Opinions are like arseholes, everyone has them. So that's all, The next candidate is definitely the most controversial one in this video. And he is also probably the most vocal in showing an interest and urgency for wanting to run. It's Conor McGregor. Conor McGregor will probably find it hard to get onto the ballot, I would suggest. But whether you love or hate him, he is probably the most known, famous Irishman in the world today. Many people think of the likes of, obviously, President Michael D. Higgins. He's pretty famous. Roy Keane is pretty famous, but more so on the Anglo-Celtic, British and Irish Isles, Roy Keane is famous. He's not a lot of people in the USA won't really know Roy Keane, but everyone in Europe, everyone in the USA, even probably people in the Far East who are in Asia and places like this who are MMA fans, know who Conor McGregor is. He is so famous for a lot of very positive right reasons, and unfortunately, his fans might not take well to me saying this, but let's be honest, a lot of negative reasons as well. So he has little to no background in politics, but a huge famous background in the world of mixed martial arts, MMA. An extremely impressive record of 22 wins, 6 draws and 0 losses. He has dominated that world already. Now, as he has ventured into Irish politics, many have shown concerns over many scandals he's been into over the last kind of 6 to 8 years. Most recently, losing a civil court case for rape against Nikita Hand. Now, to show respect to the victim in this case, I'd rather not go into the ins and outs of this tragic situation. There is other videos you can watch that go into it a bit more deeply. I'm not really that guy. But I will say that some of his fans have made the argument that the fact that this was a civil case and not a criminal court case means that he's really innocent and hasn't done anything wrong, essentially. I leave that up to ye, the viewers, to decide for yourselves. On a political level, Connor has said he wants to dissolve the Dáil. He wants to close the borders, look at our relationship with the EU, and emphasise Irish sovereignty. It seems very unlikely that McGregor will find enough TDs or Shanadors to make his way onto the ballot due to his current lack of popularity within the Irish public. So, it's kind of just a toxic name to attach yourself with. Even the more right-wing leaning people in the Oireachtas will probably look to other candidates with respect, because it's just very toxic at the moment to attach yourself to a name like Conor McGregor due to all those reasons that I've mentioned. There is also other scandals, but at the end of the day, we're here to talk politics. We're not here to talk about the people. But I suppose I did feel it was important to mention the Nikita Hand one, because it's such a prominent case and it's so recent that people should know that it happened. I think everyone knows it happened. I don't think I'm breaking the news to anyone. So yeah, look, myself, I wouldn't give him a vote at all, I don't think. Like I give a little opinion on Carter and Connolly, so I might as well give an opinion for McGregor as well. Even if he makes some sensible points about EU, we need the need for EU reform, immigration, which is why he talks about more being a problem, which it obviously is. Like, let's be mature here, yeah, he just is toxic, I suppose, for many reasons, and he doesn't have a background either. He's not qualified for the role. This is actually quite an important role. He's still quite a young man. He's only 2 years into it, and I think you've got to be. The criteria for president is like, Catherine Connolly. She's a former barrister, so she's going to have an idea of legislation and law and economics, etc. And I know that the president is more of a figurehead role, etc. But you've got to have some sort of political background and knowledge, and and I know he makes an interesting point on Tucker Carlson that he believes the era of the politician has to die. Maybe it does. Like, I don't, in some ways we definitely need more accountability, that's for sure. But yeah, I just, even away from the scandals, which, like, I don't really want to get into, like, he's just not qualified for the job. You look at the CV, it's just not there. It's a real pity. Like, I do, like, despite all the disgusting stuff he's kind of done, I do admire him a lot. I was a big fan. He's done incredible things for Irish sport. His biggest hater will probably still deny it, but they can't. Like, it's a fact, But yeah, it's a difficult one to talk about. But yeah, look, I think I had to mention it because he's been so vocal in stating his desire to run. But it's almost not worth talking about because there's like such little chance that he gets onto the ballot. But look, I'm a Christian. I believe in forgiveness, and that everyone can repent and rewrite their chapter. So sincerely, I hope that's what Connor does. But it does feel a bit soon after so much has gone on to grant him with the presidency, So maybe he can make a comeback story for himself, and when he's a bit older. I don't know. That's enough talking about one person, though. The next candidate is the first party candidate so far. It's Mhór McGuiness. In last week's podcast with Brendan, we actually discussed her a little bit. Brendan gave his insight into her. as a member of Fine Gael. She will easily get into the ballot, but anyway, we'll get into it. So McGuiness has been a prominent figure in Irish and European politics for some time now. She's been described by Fionn Sheehan as a Christian Democrat with a conscience. And this is where her conservatism stems from. In October 2019, her, along with other Fine Gael colleagues, voted against a motion and this is the exact motion verbatim: EU member states to enhance proactive search and rescue operations by providing sufficient vessels and equipment specifically dedicated to search and rescue personnel, along with the routes that they can make an effective contribution to the preservation of lives. So this is like a direct, that's the direct verbatim motion that her and her Fine Gael colleagues voted against in the European Parliament. This was seen as massively controversial at the time. It still is to this day. She still gets, people are still questioning it a lot. And many parties, Irish parties in Europe, like Sinn Féin, for example, accused her of pandering to the far right. McGuiness is a strong advocate for a united Europe and Ireland's active participation in the EU. She also comes from an agricultural background and so advocates for that and rural development. Despite, some people claiming that, feeling, I suppose, that Fine Gael have turned their backs on agriculture over the last few years, when you think of the Mercosur deal, etc. We discussed that a bit in the podcast last week. So yeah, she's also a big believer in women's empowerment and gender equality and economic responsibility. So that's kind of an idea of her beliefs. And there's podcasts she's done in like joe.ie that you can watch that go into her. She'd actually talk about her beliefs a bit more if you want to watch that. If you want more information. She shouldn't have a problem getting on the ballot with large Fine Gael presences in both the Oireachtas and county councils. She'll very easily get on. You can consider, like Simon Harris, I think on his Twitter or something like that, announced that she will be the one. So you can consider her, on the ballot already, essentially. A bit, even more than Catherine Connolly, even though I think Catherine Connolly won't have a problem. I think she will have even less of a problem getting on the ballot, quite frankly. Look, I think, and this might, she seems like a really nice person, like lovely woman, like nothing against her personally. But it does feel like to me, Mairead McGuinness as President of Ireland would be the last nail in the coffin towards the full European unionisation of our country, because from my reading of her and understanding of her, and she has some solid beliefs. She believes in the family structure. She wants to create economic incentives to make people's lives a bit easier and all that kind of stuff, which is great. But she seems extremely loyal to Europe, almost before Ireland. She's Ursula von der Leyen has chose her to be her, big up in I think she's co-chairperson in the Fine Gael's European Party, the EPP, I think they're called, European People's Party. So I just think if you value like traditional Irish Republican values and Irish sovereignty, I don't think this is a great choice at all. Because essentially and there's not like I explained in my view in the podcast last week, I'm not against Europe. I think we should be a part of the European Union, but not to the extent where we're just the best boys and girls in the class and we have to answer to them for everything. And I think her becoming president would be the gateway to that. So not for me, but again, I hope do what you want with that information. Do your own research and come to your own conclusions. That's just my own opinion. That's all it is. Okay. And I respect all views, but yeah, that's Maria McGuiness. That's her. We'll move on to the next potential candidate. This one is Nick Delehanty or Delehanty. I'm not actually too sure how you pronounce it. I'm just going to say Delehanty, but Nick, sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong, Nick. Nick knows himself that he will find it hard to get onto the ballot. It's a bit of a David versus Goliath situation, but he has a lot of support, grassroots support, and who knows. He is the least well known of the candidates, I would say, but arguably the most qualified of the lot so far. Nick has a background in farming. He is a qualified solicitor in the asset management and investment funds unit at prominent Irish law firms Arthur Cox and A&L Goodbody. He's also a business owner running a pet shop. Nick has been vocal in calling out the government's mismanagement of the migrant crisis, exposing vulture funds and various iPass scandals. For this, Delehanty has been accused of being far right by some. But he said, and this is a quote verbatim, you can find it on his Twitter, he wants to talk to the far left on what he agrees with them on, and he wants to talk to the far right on what they disagree on. So that's a pretty good answer to someone accusing you of being far right, I think, you know. Just going to say it straight, Nick is my personal choice. If he gets in the ballot, he's getting my number one. But he will have a tough time getting into the ballot due to being relatively unknown, and he's contested in 2 elections now and failed to win seats on both times on the council and for a TD. Yeah, Nick is a great guy. I am in contact with him from time to time. So that's a hint of bias there, 100%. But he is qualified. Nobody can take that away from him. And I mean, all of these people have immense backgrounds in all of their various fields. That's true. But what does the president? What kind of boxes should the president be ticking? A background in farming. The nation of Ireland, we are an agricultural people. We always have been. We've been oppressed agriculturally for centuries. A movie like The Field illustrates that. So that's a good start. I know McGuiness has that as well, in fairness to her, so I won't take that away from her, but I would question Fine Gael's record on agriculture. You can't question that from Nick Delehanty, an independent. A qualified solicitor in asset management and investment funds. That shows that he has an understanding of lawmaking and policy. And so, again, Connolly is a barrister, so she will have that too. I can't take that away from her. But you can't take that away from Nick either then. You have to have your cake and eat it, you know. And I know, look, some people might laugh at me for saying, oh, look at him, he runs a pet shop. But, running a business in today's economy is no joke. Like, it isn't, So that's quite a lot to have him decide. Also, he's going for political campaigns. He's recently become a father. To me, that's an impressive CV. To me. Might not be to you, the viewer, but to me, that's an impressive CV. So I would encourage people to ring their local county councillors, their local TDs or Oireachtas members, and ask them to consider Nick for a nomination. I actually think he would be an immense president. And also the other thing is that he is part of this generation who has been suffering at the hands of the housing crisis. I think he's about 35 or 36, so he's just about old enough to actually, qualify to run for president. And this is his own words, he's happy with people that's being out in the public. He's never owned a home. So why not give the biggest mansion in the country to a non-homeowner as well? But in all seriousness though, like Maria McGuiness, very old, quite elderly woman, at this stage of her life, part of the party who has been in power for the last 14 years and have, I would say, failed on housing, is she really going to get the job done in terms of housing? And I know the president doesn't necessarily have those powers, but I'm going to get onto that in a minute as well. You've got Catherine Connolly. In fairness, she has come out very strongly in wanting to target the housing crisis. But again, she's probably been a homeowner most of her life. She probably doesn't understand the issue as intrinsically as someone like Nick would. Conor McGregor, a literal multi-millionaire, he is not even on the same planet as young Irish people nowadays in terms of owning a home. He probably has multiple homes in America and Ireland, etc. So that's all the candidates so far. I really think that, and he is that. And the last thing I'll say, Nick, you're probably all sick to your teeth listening to me kind of glazing him, but I'm just giving my honest opinion because I think he's a great guy and I think he'd make a great president. He has argued, and he's dead right in my opinion, that this notion that the president has no power and that it's just a ceremonial role needs to change. He doesn't believe that there's a housing crisis. He believes there's a political crisis. Rotating Taoiseach every year, Gavin Maleshkel. We need adults into the room politically, and he is willing to offer that. And as president, he believes that it's just, he wants to give more power to the presidential role. And look, that's not, and some would say, is he trying to be like a dictator? It's like, no, but the presidential role was supposed to be important, and he wants to make it kind of important again, not a sort of retirement home. So, and that's not me saying that elderly people can't, that would be ageist. Elderly people, of course, can go into the RS and make a great impact. However, in the unique times that we're in, perhaps we need a young voice in there for us young people. Look, that's my opinions. Feel free to comment down below or get in touch with me and tell me why I'm wrong, or preferably tell me why I'm right and give a like. But no, I'm happy to hear why I'm wrong as well. But that's it. That's why I think he'd be great. Yeah. But look, I apologise for the bias, but that's what you'll get on Mhór. It's authentic, my authentic opinions, and if you don't like that, that's totally cool, and I apologise, but that's what you're gonna get. So anyway, we'll move on to the last candidate he's in the category of, he hasn't, I could be wrong, I don't think he's necessarily come out and said I'm running for president in the same way that some of these guys have. Like Nick has been every day posting I'm running for president, reminding people. Conor McGregor is the same. Catherine Connolly has announced it, and McGuiness, she hasn't been loud in it herself, and she's been even unsure herself, but her party has kind of announced it for her, and it will be officially announced in September. But this is Declan Ganley. So Declan Ganley there's strong rumours that he's been seeking nominations from Oireachtas members. So that's why I was kind of on the fence of whether he's rumoured or confirmed, but I think he is as good as confirmed, I would say. And he's also an interesting guy, and I want to talk a little bit about him. So I would suggest that he has a better chance than Nick and Conor of getting onto the ballot, but he still won't have an easy time. It will still be, it'll be a struggle if he does, and he might end up on 18, 19, or just about hit that golden 20. So he's an English-born Irishman and a socially and economically conservative candidate. He's an entrepreneur and businessman, and was also the leader of the Irish branch of the Eurosceptic Libertas Party in the European Parliament. He has been actively seeking Oireachtas members to consider him for a nomination. He has been a part of the pro-life movement in Ireland since 2009 and has a large presence on social media. So yeah, while he's not certain to end up in the ballot, he does, I would say, have more of a chance than Delehanty and McGregor, due to being better known than Delehanty and not as controversial as McGregor. Yeah, Declan Ganley, interesting guy. Probably of the list so far would be my personal second favorite. Um, I'd like to hear more about his economic beliefs, but from what I can gather and the brief research I've done, he's more economically conservative, which would I yeah, I'm not sure that's what we need because that's kind of what we've done. And has it worked? Some would say it has, some would say it hasn't. Um, but yeah, I'm always going to respect a pro-life candidate. That's fantastic, you know. Um, but yeah, Declan Ganley, um, not got a load to say at him. I mean, he has a background in politics. That's important to me. He's a modest age. I think he's about 58. Again, I don't want to come across as being ageist, lads, but like you know that yeah. Look, it is what it is. If people are going to be offended, they're going to be offended. Yeah. So, uh, I'm not got a whole pile to say on Declan Ganley. Like, if he gets into the ballot, good for him, and um, I think he'd be decent to be honest, but just wouldn't be 100% aligned with him or as passionately enthusiastic. I wouldn't be as enthusiastic about him as I'd be about a guy like Nick Delehanty. Personally, that's just myself. So yeah, they are the confirmed candidates. That's kind of the meat of this podcast. I'll just briefly touch on the rumoured runners. So we've got Mary Hannafin from Fianna Fáil. She would easily get into the ballot because Fianna Fáil have huge presence on the councils across the country, and they also have a huge presence in the Oireachtas. So if she wants it and she gets selected by Fianna Fáil, she will end up on the ballot 100%. There's a couple of people from Sinn Féin. John Finucane is one of them. Again, easily would get into the ballot. Sinn Féin have a pretty nice grip on the Oireachtas and the councils, so he wouldn't have any trouble, you know. I would suggest. But Sinn Féin are also like Mary Lou hasn't ruled herself out. Michelle O'Neill, I think there's some rumours. Jerry Adams has ruled himself out, so yeah, we can basically count him out, which you know, it would have been kind of interesting seeing Mhór and his Taoiseach have to report to Jerry Adams, the president. I'm sure he wouldn't have wanted to do that anyway. But yeah, so Sinn Féin, I think they're still unsure at this point whether they want to run their own candidate or back Catherine Connolly. There's a good chance they could just back Catherine Connolly. I wouldn't be surprised, but I also wouldn't be surprised if they decide to launch their own person. So yeah, who knows? That's for them to decide internally. And the last person I'll mention is at Ulster University. I think that's the uni she's in. Sorry if I'm wrong there. Lecturer Deirdre Heenan. She has been the candidate put forward by Fianna Fáil. Now, I do believe some Fianna Fáil members are unhappy with this potential decision because their argument is there's loads of people who have given their life to the party, service to the party, and they're just going to give it to some big time academic intellectual instead, which is I think like as good as this woman Deirdre Heenan might be, like I know nothing about her. I think that's a fair argument. You know, you should be more respectful of your party colleagues. But yeah, that's kind of it. I wouldn't have strong opinions in any of them three. Like, I like John Finucane. For example, just I like him as a person. He's a very strong Republican, North Belfast, has been through a lot in his life. I wouldn't have. I need to learn a bit more about what he stands for politically and stuff. But I think I like on the basis of it, I like him. The two Fianna Fáil candidates, yeah, like I know nothing about the two of them personally. But what I do know is I'm not a huge fan of modern Fianna Fáil, so not sure I would vote for them if I'm being honest. So yeah, lads, a cardja, hosig sé anuas Darren a pod creala. That kind of brings us to the end of the podcast. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed this, lads. It felt a bit awkward at times recording on my own. I know it's a much shorter episode, which you might like, by the way. Maybe you like shorter formed podcasts. I don't know. I'll leave that. Let me know in the comments. But it was weird, but kind of weirdly enjoyable being on my own, even though I would much prefer to have a guest 100%. But yeah, just please, I'm looking to really professionalize the podcast. Shout out to Tam. Tam has done some great graphics for us. And I'm looking to just get more consistent with it. So if you have any suggestions for guests or topics, or just generally what you'd like to see, please do leave it down below in the comments. Yeah, that's gonna bring us to the end. Thank you all so much for watching. And please tune in next week as well. Thank you so much all for watching. Gurb míle maith agah ag éisteacht agus slán go fóill.